So thanks very much, Ray, for the kind introduction, and thanks, Betty, for illuminating presentation as always. As Ray said, I'm the founder of Dub, and we're a research community and online qual research technology business. And we work with agencies and brands alike, around the world, helping them do better online qualitative research. And I think that's really important to distinguish that today. So we are very much going to be focusing on qualitative research where there are multiple interactions with. Presenting with me today is Amone.
Hi, hello. Sorry, let me introduce myself as well. My name is Amone Redelinghuys. I work for Cribbett. We're a market research agency, and we use Dub as the supplier for all the online communities we run when we do qualitative online research.
Great, so we'll get going. First slide here today, and I know this is something that we've all heard and talked about a lot in the past, but I think it's important just to quickly reflect on this. There are more connected consumers than ever before, and also more mobile consumers than ever before, and I think it's fair to say that communication is now ubiquitous. I think a lot of the research that we look at is specifically around things like, how emails, which is one of the preeminent kind of communication methods, how emails are used and engaged with, and I believe that around 50% of all emails are first opened on mobile devices right now. But according to the ITU, there are more people online right now than actually have smartphones, so there are some implications for that. I think another 1 billion people will come online by 2020 are the predictions that we're seeing. And to give this some context for Amone and her market, which is South Africa, obviously smartphones play a massive role in their communication across the country. 90% of the 6.4 million people in South Africa who access the internet rely solely on an interconnection on their mobile phones. So some big implications there for them and the qual research work they do there. And what does this mean for market research? Well, obviously Ray, who's a keen advocate for mobile research, in his own work he's predicting or suggesting that at the moment around a third of people who take online surveys are attempting to do so on their mobile devices. So give us a little bit of context as we go through the presentation and see kind of the magnitude of online research, both qual and quant there. The participant experience is key, and in the context of online qualitative research where we're engaging people for a more sustained period of time, it's ever more important. Why do we think it's important? Well, first of all, it's important just to get the consumers to participate in the projects. Word of mouth travels fast. If you know someone that's participated in an online qual study in the past and had a good experience, you're more likely to do so yourself when you're invited in to do so. It's important, to get the best possible insights from consumers in terms of data quality. The depth and breadth of the data and the insight that you're going to gather is massively important. It's important to give the consumers choice so they can select when, where and how they respond to the questions rather than being limited. And back in the old world, before mobiles and smartphones were as big as they are right now, when they were only able to respond on a laptop or a PC computer, obviously that had some big implications for it. But importantly, the participant experience is key because we want to deliver a good experience. We're talking about real people taking part in these studies. If they don't have a good experience, they're not going to do it again. You're potentially going to bias the data and the responses that you gather. If you think about the emotion of feeling frustrated because you can't do something or because you can't read something properly on a small screen, that's going to have a big implication for the data quality. So the experience is important, and the way that we think about designing the experience is hugely important as well. So if we take a closer look at responsive design and device agnostic approach, what does that actually mean? Well, it means taking into consideration an infinite combination of screen sizes and resolutions. But in this modern day, we as a software business start with mobile first. We design for small screens first and then work up to the bigger screens. And I think research needs to take the same approach to be truly responsive or device agnostic. We have to look at the input methods and the different data types that are being collected and how that is facilitated through the different devices and the different browsers. We have to look at the browser capability. Obviously, there are many different browsers, different browser versions. We have to take those into consideration from the very beginning when we're designing the research, in the same way that we as a software design business have to think about those things very carefully when we design the outcomes and the solutions that we come up with. And also we have to think about the connection speed, 3G, 4G, wireless, online, offline working. All of those things have an implication for how people take part, where and when they do what you're asking them to do. So we have to think about that when we're designing the experience. Don't think about just designing a discussion guide. Think about, from beginning to end, what that time spent with you as the moderator, what that time conducting those activities is going to look like, and how it's going to make those people feel. I always apply the mum test. I think about, would my mum be able to read this? Would she be able to engage it on a small device? What would that mean to her? Where would she find it difficult? And if you think like that, you'll have much better success. And the usage habits, obviously we know they vary from device to device. So what do we know about them? Well, invariably consumers use mobile devices in a very different way to large devices. I think it's obvious to say that. But they're using them in different contexts. They're using them in social contexts. They're using them with friends. They're using them at events and when they're undergoing experiences. People are using mobile devices throughout the day. So when they're on the go, when they're in between meetings, and I guess, dare I say it, when they're sitting on the loo, seems to be fairly common these days, to fill in time. So this results in a very different style and quality of data that's captured for these studies. So data that's quick to capture and easy to share is typically what you'll gather through mobile devices. However, when you want people to be reflective or perhaps write more, the chances are they will sit down and do so. Sometimes you might have to request that they do that because that's the type of response that you're looking for. So think very carefully about those factors when designing your research. And on that basis, we decided that there was some more research on research that was needed to look at the differences between research that was conducted on mobile only and research that gave participants the freedom and flexibility to choose the devices that they were using for that. So I'm going to hand over to Amone now, who's going to talk a little bit more about the research study that they undertook.
Yes, so true to our nature of being market researchers, we couldn't wait for the opportunity to do some more research on this topic. And we specifically wanted to test the hypothesis to see that whether or not when you use a mobile device compared to a desktop or a laptop, is there a difference in the quality and the granularity of the responses. So we actually launched an experimental study to set out and test it. And what we did was we recruited respondents to an online community, and we divided them into 3 comparable groups. For the first group, we instructed them to only use mobile devices. So that could include a smartphone or a tablet. Another group, we told them to use only desktop or laptop computers. And then for a third group, they were like our control group. We told them that they can use a combination of both devices. They can choose which one they want to use. There were no specific instructions in terms of what they had to use. Special care was then taken to ensure that the sample profile of all 3 of these groups had similar proportions, so that we know that any differences we saw were not due to any basic demographics, but truly because there's a difference in device usage. And what we saw was very interesting. First of all, if we look at the amount of sign-ups, people who were invited to the community and people who actually signed up, you will see that there's a higher percentage in the group that had a choice in terms of the device they wanted to use. This might be an early indication that participants want to be given a choice when they opt in to research and opt in to take part. They don't want to be limited to one device. Then if you look at the dropout rate, we defined a dropout as someone who did not complete at least half of the activities in the online community. So if you look at the group limited to the desktops had a little bit higher dropout rate, but nothing statistically significant about that. Then if we look at, I'll just check if this slide is changing. If you look at the participation, you will see that the group using desktop and laptop devices had a higher average of number of responses per person. However, the number of multimedia uploads were higher for the mobile group. This might be an indication that when you are in front of a laptop or a desktop, it might be easier to take part more than once, and it might be easier to express. However, with a mobile device, it might be a little easier to upload a multimedia, like a photo or a picture that you have with you. then, I'm sorry, there's a slight delay between the slides, but yeah, you get the gist of it. In terms of the word count, you will see that the group using mobile devices had a smaller word count than any of the other groups, which is proving the hypothesis that when you're on a mobile phone and you're on the go and you want to quickly capture your thoughts or quickly share an opinion, a mobile phone would be easier to do that. However, when you have a full keyboard in front of you and you can really type out your response, the number of words per person and average in the community increased for the laptop and desktop users. In terms of the response quality, again, another interesting find. We had a second blind researcher rate the different responses without knowing which group a response belonged to. So this researcher was then asked to rate a response on either give it a good score, an average score, or a bad score. And what we saw here is that the group using a combination of devices outperformed the other groups, as they had the highest percentage of good responses and the least amount of bad responses, showing that giving consumers the option of the device they want to use really do increase the quality of their responses and really contribute to what they say in the community. The report-worthy verbatim comments, this is a, there I lost it again. Anyway, yeah, let me tell you about the report-worthy verbatim comments. What we did here is, if a verbatim quote from a respondent in the community can be included in the final research report to really highlight an emerging theme, but the criteria was that it shouldn't be edited too much and it should not be rephrased. Just as it is, it captures the essence and can be included in the report. And here you will see again that the group using a combination of devices had the most number of verbatims that we could include in the final reports that we sent to our clients. So what did we find? For the most part, we find parity in the results. With regards to dropout rate, level of participation, and number of words used, there were no major statistical significant differences between the different groups. However, the mobile users did not express their opinion in a very detailed manner. They used fewer words, and they were more inclined to express themselves with visual images. So as a research agency, if we were to get a topic that requires users to, for example, go to a store and capture the experience while they're busy doing it, pushing a mobile device usage would be great, because then we would actually get in-the-moment exploration with them, and they will be able to upload the pictures to the activities directly. However, if we're exploring something that requires more detail and more granular explanations, pushing a desktop usage would be better. But for the most part, when consumers are given an option, they give the most detailed and highest quality responses of all. So what we take from this is giving consumers the freedom to decide when and where and how they want to talk to us, giving them the choice of a mobile device and a desktop, whichever works best, doing the mom test to say my mom would feel much more comfortable on a computer than on a phone. By giving them that option instead of deciding it for them, we truly believe that device agnostic research is the way to go. Stephen, do you want
to wrap up there, we've created a couple of just a couple of tips really on how to be truly device agnostic with your qualitative research. So first of all, select the right technology. Make sure that it's fit for purpose. Make sure that you're working closely with your vendor and asking the right questions of them so that you truly know what the capabilities of the technology are before you go ahead and use it. Use a range of different activity types and make sure that those activity types are of course easy to complete on the mobile devices and smartphones. Test the activities on all devices and across many different browsers. As we said earlier, there are many different varieties there, so you don't necessarily have to do that yourself, but I think work with your vendor, your technology partner, to make sure that they can help you perhaps potentially with that. Number 4, reinforce the options with your participants. Sometimes you need to be quite explicit and suggest to them what type of device is best used to respond to what type of activity. I don't think there's any harm in actually spelling that out to them through the course of the invitations and the activities that you're creating. Number 5, encourage multi-device use. Encourage them not just to rely on using one single device, because the type of data and the type of experience and moments that you're looking to capture may vary over the course of your study. use feedback to improve the design, and look at kind of constant improvement and constant iteration of your research design. Through the course of any study, and including at the end of the study, always ask them the questions, what worked, what didn't work, and make sure you use that feedback and thread that into your kind of the next research design that you do. And here the final two really is just about, support as much as you can and be prepared to provide that support. Often with asynchronous online calling communities, because they do take a little bit of longer time and gestate over time, you need to be there and be present so that you can offer that support. And and these are real people at the other end. Be human, put yourself in their position, empathize with them and understand what they're going through. Try to remove any of those frustrations, because they can exist and they can create some sort of bias on the research.